Jeremy here from Holley Performance, and we brought in Matt, one of our EFI engineers, to help introduce the Sniper Hyperspark ignition system. So Matt, aside from the initial EFI install, which we solved with our Sniper EFI kits, one of the most challenging aspects of controlling timing with your ECU is correctly phasing your distributor, which is why we came up with this foolproof installation tool. So Matt, why don't you show us how to use this cool tool to set our distributor reference angle?
Sure, not a problem. Our first step is to verify we're on the compression stroke on cylinder 1 and the balancer is reading 0. That indicates we're at top dead center on that cylinder. Next step is to install the distributor. First, start by removing the distributor cap. If your kit came with a gasket, make sure you install the gasket on the distributor before putting it in the engine.
Don't forget, sometimes you'll have to rotate that oil pump shaft so it aligns with the gear on the distributor.
That's correct. Go ahead and drop the distributor in the engine and make sure that the distributor housing completely seats against the engine block or the intake manifold.
So does it matter which direction our rotor's facing?
No, that'll depend on your spark plug wires if they're long enough to reach to the number 1 terminal.
Okay. So is this where we get to use this installation tool?
It is. Let me show you how. Take the cap and place it on the rotor. You'll see that it's not aligned with the housing, but what you can do is now rotate your distributor housing until the cap drops down on both the housing and the rotor. Doesn't matter which direction you spin the housing, as long as you have access to the pigtail.
So this really is a foolproof way of establishing the correct reference angle.
Yeah, it's as simple as locking down the distributor at this point.
Let's do it.
Make sure you use a wrench to tighten the nut.
So now we can install the distributor cap?
No, not quite yet. We need to mark number 1 cylinder.
So how do we do that?
Installation tool has a little indication that allows you to put a mark on the distributor housing where number 1 cylinder will be. Now you can put the distributor cap on.
Man, this installation tool sure makes it easy.
Yeah, its patented design really simplifies the installation.
Sure does.
Go ahead and tighten the screws down on the distributor cap. And the mark that we previously made on the distributor housing with the installation tool is now shown here. This indicates where this number 1 spark plug terminal post is.
Well, that seems simple enough.
Yeah, the Hyperspark distributor uses a Hall effect sensor to provide the Sniper EFI with an RPM signal.
What else do we have to connect?
Next to connect is the ignition box to the coil. That you can use the harness that comes with the ignition box. It's got a main plug that plugs directly into the ignition box. It's got 2 leads.
Now those, I know, need to go directly to the battery, don't they?
They do. Power and ground directly to the battery. And then there's a connector that goes directly to the coil. You'll notice we still have a connector with 2 loose wires.
Where do we need to connect those?
Well, the red wire on the ignition harness and the pink wire from the distributor harness need to be connected to a switched 12-volt source. That source needs to be hot while cranking as well as while the ignition switch is in the run position.
Okay. What about the white wire?
The white wire, it needs to be connected to the Sniper. The way you do that is use the 10-pin output harness that comes with your Sniper EFI and find the wire that's labeled points output. That white wire will connect to the white wire on the Hyperspark ignition system, and that's as simple as it gets.
So that's providing RPM signal?
Yeah, that provides the RPM signal that came from the distributor that went to the Sniper. Now the Sniper is providing the RPM signal to the ignition box.
To provide a spark.
Correct.
Okay.
Don't forget to plug the 10-pin harness into the Sniper EFI.
So is that it for the installation?
The ignition system's completely installed. The only thing we've got left to do is program the Sniper to communicate with the Hyperspark ignition system.
And just how do we do that?
Through the wizard that comes with the Sniper EFI. It's very simple, and we've brought this C20 here today that has the Hyperspark ignition system already on it, as well as a Sniper EFI throttle body.
Perfect. Why don't you show me?
Yeah. So now that we're in the truck, let's go ahead and power on the Sniper and send a configuration to it.
Okay.
First thing to verify with installing the HyperSpark ignition system is to make sure that the firmware on the handheld and the ECU are compatible to the HyperSpark ignition system.
Okay, where do we do that?
So if you press File and then ECU HW/FW, it'll list out the firmware version of what firmware is on the Sniper EFI itself. 1.1.1 is the minimum version to be used with the HyperSpark ignition system.
So we're good there?
Yep, ECU is good. Let's go ahead and check the handheld, and by pressing that back button once, and pressing local setup and then local info. It lists out 1.1.7 as its device firmware. That is also the minimum version to be used with a HyperSpark ignition system.
All right, so we're good there, but what if we didn't have the updated firmware in it?
There's a really good walkthrough video at holley.com that walks you through how to install new ECU firmware as well as handheld firmware.
Perfect.
So being that we are good, let's go ahead and just start going through the wizard. And the wizard would be, this is no different than any normal Sniper install. Very first install, this is how you'd go about doing it. So we're going to choose the 4150 version of the Sniper, choose our number of cylinders, choose our displacement, our idle speed, target idle speed, type of camshaft type we have. If we had a power outer, now is when we would choose it.
Like nitrous?
Exactly. We don't have that. And now we have an ignition type question.
I see it added the HyperSpark distributor to the list.
Yep, the HyperSpark distributor, that's why we had to update our firmware, is to make sure that appeared. So now we'll press the next button. It's going to ask for a timing number at wide open throttle. And so we're going to choose something appropriate for this engine here. We're just going to choose 30 degrees, but it's important to choose something appropriate to your application. Now it has a start button here that when you press that start button, it'll actually put the calibration in the ECU for the Sniper that is already configured for the HyperSpark.
Okay, so they can communicate?
Yep, so we'll go ahead and do that. And it'll say, at the end of it, please cycle the ignition.
Okay.
So let's go ahead. Yep, we'll go ahead and do that. Cycle the ignition off. And we will go ahead and let's turn the ignition on.
I hear the fuel pump.
Fuel pump turned on because we sent a calibration. We'll choose something that gives us a ability to see RPM signal.
Okay.
So right now it says stall, but let's go ahead and see if we can start this up, and yeah, instantly lit off right there. So we've got RPM signal and it looks like it's running, so it's important to let's verify the timing set correctly.
All right, I'll get the timing light set up.
All right, perfect. I'll set it up in the handheld here. What you need to do is go back to the main menu and press tuning, system, and then static timing set. What that allows you to do is put a timing number that will read constant on the balancer. So in this instance, we got a 15 mark. So I'm going to press set, and on the balancer, it should say 15. Go ahead and check it now.
15 degrees on the button.
Awesome, perfect. That's what we're expecting. Good to go. So I'll go ahead and press clear and close, and we can shut the truck off. Glad that the timing was synced at 15 degrees.
Yeah, it was dead on at 15. But what happens if it's not?
If it's not, it's as simple as loosening the distributor hold down and rotating the housing, advancing it or retarding it so that it matches whatever you've commanded in the handheld.
You weren't kidding. This whole system has been super easy to install.
Yeah, the installation cap makes it a breeze to set your crank reference angle, and everything else is plug and play. It's really a true engineered system for Sniper EFI.
It's a great way to add the ignition timing control to the Sniper ECU.
With that timing control, you get some added benefits of improved fuel economy, improved idle stability, and possibly even more power.
Great. I appreciate you coming over and helping us do this install.
Yeah, absolutely, anytime.
All right. Thanks for watching. For more information on the Sniper HyperSpark ignition system, visit our website at sniperefi.com.